Let's talk about triggers today. I am Lisa from Lisa's Sanctuary, and I get a lot of questions about triggers. You know, how do you find what your trigger is? How do you heal from it? How do you move on from it? How do you avoid them? What about, people in your life who trigger you? I get lots of questions about it. So rather than read out any specific sort of questions, I don't want to identify people or their situations, but I'll just run through just some of the most common questions I get. So what is a trigger? What happens is you would have experienced something when you were younger, maybe not too long ago, and your body felt unsafe, it felt at threat, your body probably believed that it wasn't going to survive. So what your body does during those moments of trauma, abuse, neglect, danger, is it looks for what's around. So I guess just to back up just slightly, when you are in an unsafe situation, your brain literally takes in everything around you, and based on everything you know, based on everything you've ever learned or read or seen in a movie, or what you know about the situation or this person, your brain makes a snap decision as to how you should act or react or respond in order to keep you alive. So the most common is fight. I need to defend myself physically, make myself bigger, stronger to defend, protect, fight you off. Second is flight. I need to run away from this situation. Freeze is I am just going to shut down, I'm going to hide, I'm going to play dead, I'm going to pretend I'm not here, I don't want you to see me. The fourth one that professionals talk about is fawning, which is when you can't fight back, there's nowhere to run, and hiding or freezing or shutting down is not going to be the most appropriate option. We go into fawn, which is I'm going to placate you, and I'm going to appease you and please you, and I'm going to do whatever I need to make it out of this situation alive. So your brain is a very, very, very smart organ. And what it does is it takes in everything that's around you. So at the time of the traumatic event, your brain will remember, and your body will remember a smell, a song, a tone of voice, somebody that was around, a shop that was in the background. Your brain, your mind, and your body take all of that in. So you can be walking down the street, and if your brain sees a shop or a person or the type of car, or you hear a song coming out of a store, your body will take you instantly back to that moment of the traumatic event. It believes it's back there. Your body believes it is there and it needs to fight for its life. And that's what a trigger is. It's that activity, the event, the thing, the object, the sight, the sound, the smell that reminds your body of being unsafe, of possibly not getting out alive. How you can figure out what your trigger is you have to work backwards. Sometime once you become triggered and you feel your heart rate increasing, your breathing getting faster, your vision will narrow, your hearing widens because you have to be on alert. When you feel yourself going into that trigger, into that panic mode, all you can do at that point is just breathe and bring it down. That is if you are physically safe. If you are not physically safe and you are actually in danger, please call who you need to call, emergency services, do whatever you need to do. But if you are physically safe and your brain is registering an event that isn't safe but it believes it is, just breathe your way through that to begin with. You have to, I sort of talk about it like, here's a baseline when we're sitting, normal, calm, relaxed, everything's fine, we're safe, we're in a good place. That's our baseline. That's what we need. When we go above baseline into that fight flight, we lose decision making. Our executive function goes offline, our rational brain goes offline, and there is no amount of calm down, you need to do this, that is going to fix that. You just have to breathe and get yourself back down to baseline. Once you are in an emotionally safer place, then you need to walk backwards with where was I when I became triggered, what was around me, what do I remember hearing, seeing, smelling, what do I remember? And it may be something that you don't remember. You won't always know what your trigger is. I remember a story of a young person, and obviously I won't give away any identifying details, but a young person who would become really triggered at a local football game. And it took a little while to work out what it was, but it was actually the smell of the meat pies cooking in the canteen at the football game that was the trigger. So it might not always be obvious, and it's something that only you can probably determine. You might not know what it is or where it's come from. Our brains do a really good job of blocking out lots of bad and negative memories to keep us safe. It's a protective measure. So do the best that you can with working out what that trigger is. But once you work out what the trigger is, it's not to avoid the trigger, it's to process it and release it. So like I said before with the traumatic event, your brain and your body remembers. It remembers. And so what you need to do is teach your body that you are actually safe now, that the event has passed, that it's over, that it's gone, that you are safe, and you need to process it and release it. The reason why you still get triggered is because that memory is stuck in the brain, in a part of the brain called the amygdala. It is stuck in there, and you need to process it and release it. And so one way that I walk myself through a trigger, I don't think, we're never fully healed. We never are completely healed. I'm 40 years old. I have lived 40 years of stuff. So it would be absolutely insane to think that I could heal, that I could get to a point where I've healed every single one of my triggers and my traumatic memories, and because there's a lot of stuff that my brain has blocked out. And, there's triggers that I've got in the last few years that I go, oh, that's where that's from. So it's an ongoing process. Don't beat yourself up over it. Give yourself a break about it. It's actually really hard and complicated work. So once you work out what the trigger is, or you just notice what's going on, the trick then is to process it and release it. So it's what triggered me, what does that from, what is the feeling? What you're looking for is the feeling. It's usually fear. It can be anger, it can be resentment, it can be rejection, it can be abandonment, it can be anything, but there's a lot to do with that fear of being unsafe and potentially not surviving. And then what I want you to do is say, what am I feeling? Name the feeling, and where am I feeling it? And this is really important particularly for survivors who have learned to disassociate, because you learn to disconnect from your body. You disconnect your feelings from your body. And so really looking into what am I feeling, where am I feeling it, gets you to move back to the present moment of where am I feeling it? Well, where in my body is it? Because you actually have to take a moment to pinpoint where it is. The most common areas to feel this fear and the negative feelings are throat, can't speak, chest, and gut area. So really from here is the most common. That's not to say you won't feel it anywhere else, but these just tend to be the most common. And then you're just going to breathe into that feeling and just breathe through it. Now it can take up to 90 seconds for that feeling, for the chemical dump of adrenaline and cortisol and all the rest of it to process through the body. But you need to just breathe through it, remind yourself that you're safe, and just breathe your way into that feeling. Healing happens through feeling, unfortunately. Because I know a lot of us, we don't like to feel those negative emotions. We don't like to feel like that. So that can be really challenging, but it really is the way through to healing. So another thing that I get asked a lot is about kids triggering, and this is a really interesting one. So There will be times, if you are a parent, where your children will trigger you. Will. It's not a maybe, it's a they will trigger you, because children, they cry, they have big emotions. Kids are dependent. They need you. And so when they get really needy and clingy and they're all over you, it can trigger you. And I think we need to talk more about that, because it's normal. It's normal. It's actually really normal. It's normal to be triggered by your child's behavior, and that doesn't mean you're a bad parent or that they're a bad kid or anything like that. It just means that you're human and something happened to you that you still need to work through and process. So 2 big things that trigger me with one of my children is he doesn't slam the door, but he closes the door really loud, and to me it sounds like a slam. Now for my body, that is a trigger for, oh my God, what mood is he in? Is he angry? Is what's going on? What's happening? What do I need to do? How do I, survive this? So even now at 40, and I left that relationship, escaped that relationship 10 years ago, the slamming of the door, and like I said, it's not even a slam. My son's not even slamming the door. He's just not gently closing it. But that's enough for me to go and just have a moment where I've got to go, oh no, it's okay. I'm safe. I'm actually here. I'm actually in my body, and I can look around and I can feel for what's around, and I do those grounding and those mindfulness techniques. But that's a thing. And then when we have a discussion, sometimes our discussions get a little bit heated. They move into arguments. I wouldn't say they're full-on arguments, but there's definitely some times when I become triggered. And I didn't realize it until probably about, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, that we were having an argument and I was getting heightened, and my son said to me, "I'm not dad." And that really threw me, because that's what it was. His father and I, we didn't have arguments that didn't result in me getting hurt. We didn't have arguments that resolved themselves, or that were, just discussions. When there were arguments, there were arguments. And I was going to get emotionally or physically hurt. And so that was really eye-opening for me, for him to say, "I'm not dad." And then that sort of gave me the space to be able to say to the kids, "I'm actually really triggered by your behavior right now. And that's okay. It doesn't make me a bad mum. It doesn't make them a bad kid. It doesn't make them a bad person. It's whatever you're doing is triggering me right now, and I need a moment. Like, I'm going to have to go and take 10 minutes. I need to just walk away. I need to deal with this." And that's how I process those triggers. When I've got something that's really stuck, I do use hypnotherapy, EMDR, I use breath work, I use tapping. Like, there are processes that I use and that I teach to process the memories and release them out of the amygdala, and, release those stuck emotions and those stuck feelings. But generally, that's how I work through a trigger. You've got to, once you feel it, you've just got to breathe your way through it, just get it back down. And then when you're in a safer, emotionally safer space, work backwards with, what did I see? What did I hear? What was around? What has triggered me? And then, oh, okay, that's what that is. Well, when have I felt like that before? What do I remember that from? And then what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Breathe it through, and then really work through whatever processes, if you've got a therapist, a counselor, any mental health professional that you work with, you can then work to resolve those triggers or try to understand it from your adult perspective. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just a few common questions that I get around triggers. If you've got anything more specific, send me a message, send me an email, reach out to me, and I can leave any identifying details out, and we can just, I can tell it how I work through it and how it is. But it's really normal to be triggered by your kids. It's really normal. It's a human reaction. So don't beat yourself up about it. Just work through it. Work through it, because healing is about feeling better. It's about having that compassion for yourself. It's about self-acceptance. And it's about forgiving yourself for who you had to be and how you've behaved in the past just to survive. So give yourself a break. But triggers are a big part of the healing journey. So absolutely get a professional if you need one. And then, yeah. So if you want to work with me, you can reach out. But otherwise, you are significant because you are. And I love you because you exist.